Welcome everyone to Sister Wives with MaryJane Kay. Today I'm doing a recap of Grey's Anatomy, Season 18, Episode 12, The Makings of You. It was a good episode. It felt more thought out and better developed than some of the episodes we've seen in later seasons. It was a joy to watch throughout. I do feel like the way the Nick character speaks, his cadence, his tone of voice, and elements of his personality and even mannerisms are very similar to that of Derek Shepherd or the actor Patrick Dempsey. And it's almost as if this actor, Scott Speedman, is trying to emulate that. And I'm not sure if he was directed to or if they just did this on purpose. But it's even in the way that they styled the actor Scott Speedman's hair. I would have liked to see them go in a different direction than Derek, having someone who had a quality similar to Derek, because that iconic pairing is kind of irreplaceable, and the character suits the Meredith character, but it's so boring and it's kind of vanilla. Derek's style of character with a slight ego, yet being super intelligent and charming, who speaks in kind of a quiet type of way, and who seems really deep and broody, that worked with Meredith when she was younger and she was darker and twistier than she is now. I don't know, if it were me, I would just go in a different direction than a Derek-esque type, even down to the hair and the manner of speaking. I just think it's already been done. It's just vanilla. No one that they put Meredith with will please everyone or ever compare to the type of chemistry or love that Meredith had with the Derek character. So I would go in a different direction, but the fans won't be 100% happy either way, and they can't revive Derek. So I just think, why not just give the Meredith character something a little different, a little unexpected, and a little less just vanilla? I enjoyed last episode, and I enjoyed this episode as well, and I hope that this continues. And they use a lot of vibey music like they used to use back in the day. The Maggie scenes of her dreaming of Ellis were Izzy-esque, when Izzy hallucinated about Denny during her bout with brain cancer when she had a tumor, and she would hallucinate Denny everywhere. So I really hope that this was just a feverish dream that Maggie was having, because of her anxiety about the letter from her mother. But I hope it's not something else, because we also know that I believe Meredith has the Alzheimer's gene like her mom. And we know, I believe Maggie has already said that she has the gene as well. I always love appearances by Ellis Gray. The actress who plays her is always on point. She's an amazing actress. I appreciated this episode a lot. So let's get into it. Season 18, Episode 12, The Makings of You. Meredith and lover boy Nick are vacationing at Nick's cabin. Dr. Ndugu and Maggie are babysitting Meredith's kids, and Maggie isn't feeling too great, and she has the flu. Dr. Ndugu encourages Maggie to get some rest as he watches the kids. I want to know how the hospital functions with the head of cardio out, Dr. Ndugu out, Meredith out, and Amelia out of work as well. Bailey already said she desperately needs more doctors, yet heads of departments can just so easily take days off. It's so unrealistic, and I know it's just a TV show, but in real life, that would be so improbable. Ellis is missing, and they find her later. She's hiding in a cupboard, so all is well. Meredith is pensive. She's at the window of the cabin staring out, and Nick brings her wine, and he asks her if she's writing her report in her head regarding her successful, groundbreaking surgery that she just did on Dr. Hamilton. Nick tells Meredith that when you work on something like that, it invades your thoughts, it invades your dreams. And Nick says he got the cabin to have a place to unwind and to get peace of mind. And then they hook up, of course, in front of a fireplace, because it's not an iconic hookup scene on Grey's unless they're doing it in front of a fireplace. Amelia is going to stay the night to chill with Kai. Nick's niece walks in on Meredith and Nick in the middle of their living room sex. Zola randomly finds a box in the bottom of Meredith's closet. Maggie opens the box and she finds different things from Ellis, her mom, like her old nameplate from her desk, that famous wine-stained diary, and there's even an old stained letter with Margaret scrawled across the envelope's front. Down comes a fully clothed Nick and Meredith. Meredith is introduced to Charlotte, Nick's niece, who Nick raised. Charlotte is there with her boyfriend Silver, and he gives the impression of being a total bum. He's kind of a hippie. I wasn't exactly as new agey and creepy and disrespectful as Silver was, but when I was younger, I definitely shroomed. I definitely had a lot of those experiences, and I was definitely a free spirit. So I would never have complained about not liking the food or assume that I would be welcome there to eat or say ridiculous things that I know that my boyfriend's parents wouldn't like. But I mean, he just comes across really bad. Nick asks if Charlotte and Silver are friends, and Silver tells Nick that they are soulmates. And Charlotte says it's like they've known each other for lifetimes. And Silver corrects her, telling her it's eras rather than lifetimes. Charlotte is starving. She mentions seeing steak in the kitchen, and Silver follows her, saying he could eat, and without even asking permission or apologizing for interrupting Nick and Meredith. Maggie is looking at the envelope, and she's curled up, and Zola asks if Maggie will open it. Maggie thinks it could be for another Margaret, possibly. If it was me, I wouldn't question it. With my personality, that letter would be opened, read, and analyzed the second it was in my hands. I'd have to know what the letter from my birth mom said. And I'm a very inquisitive person, so I wouldn't be able to even ponder it. I would just immediately be opening it. Maggie seems very apprehensive, but it's also probably a big deal to her with all of these expectations in her mind to dash or to possibly uphold. It's the first direct piece of communication she has ever had from her biological mom, Ellis Gray, even from beyond the grave. So I can understand it's a lot to process. Dr. Ndugu mentions to Maggie that after his mom died, all the things that he saved of his mom, the precious mementos, burned in a house fire at his grandma's house. And he lost pictures and books, and he even lost the last birthday card his mom gave him. He was devastated, and he dreams of seeing his mom's handwriting again. That's an odd line to me to say you miss a person's handwriting specifically, but Dr. Ndugu says Maggie doesn't have to read the letter, but it's nice that she has it. She has her mother's handwriting. Kai and Amelia go to the bar. They're at the bar where Kai has invited her to see a show, and Amelia doesn't know this yet, but Kai is actually the performer of the show at the bar. And Meredith and her lover boy Nick are making dinner for Silver and Charlotte, who are really intruding, who haven't asked permission to be there, yet they are making dinner for Silver and Charlotte. Silver's super ungrateful. He complains, more cheese on something would go a long way. How do you walk in someone's house, interrupt them hooking up, then decide to eat without ever really being invited to? And then the guy, Silver, complains that the food could use more of this or less of that, or putting some more cheese in this would go a really long way. Nick tells Silver it's a cool name, and Silver says it feels like who he is in this moment, bright but overlooked. Charlotte tells Nick when she first met Silver, his name was actually Oak. Nick asks, so Silver isn't your real name? And Silver explains, we're always evolving, so he changes his name each time he feels like a different person. And Nick asks, is that often? And Silver says, no more than the next person. Nick puts down some more food next to Silver, and Silver tastes this food Nick has graciously made him, even though he's uninvited, and he tells Nick it's a little salty after he tries it. Meredith asks Silver and Charlotte where they met, and they met in the woods microdosing on shrooms. Nick says microdosing is meant for anxiety and depression or substance abuse issues, and he asks Charlotte if that sounds like her. Silver explains that they shroom to get in touch with their shadow selves, the parts of them they are afraid of and scared of. Nick says it's not what it's for, and he asks Meredith if she knows about microdosing therapy. She says she has read the science, but she isn't sure she has as much education on it as Silver has. Nick asks if Silver and Charlotte are in the same classes, and Silver responds that he's not a college type of guy. He's more of a student of life. Nick asks what Silver does as a student of life. Silver says that they can learn a lot from traveling the world, and they can learn much more than they would learn sitting in a classroom. They plan to study everything around them in Costa Rica. Nick asks if they're planning a trip to Costa Rica after the semester is over because he's expecting his niece to be attending school. He asks if it's for study abroad, and Silver says, why pay tuition when you can just go abroad for a few months? Charlotte tells Nick she was going to tell him that she is leaving school. Back to Maggie. Maggie is sick, sitting on her bed, and finally opening Ellis's letter. It's very Ellis, down to the wine stains, just like in her journals from back in the day. Ellis says she has to admit that letter writing is her preferred form of communication. You are able to say what you need to say without rude interruptions or interference. She says there are things she should tell Margaret, and there is no time like the present. And Maggie hallucinates or dreams that Ellis is in her bed reading the letter as Maggie stares at her in disbelief. This is very Izzy Denny brain tumor, and I hope this is just a feverish dream or Maggie imagining and not something more. With Grace, you really never know. I doubt it, but who knows? Ellis says her recent diagnosis has forced her to think about her own mortality, the past, and the mistakes she's made. She says she thinks she got her desire to take care of others from her mother, the quintessential housewife, with everything perfect, even the perfect pleats ironed in her A-line skirt. I think it's very interesting that we're getting a little bit of Ellis's backstory. To be perfect wasn't enough for Ellis's father. He slept with all of his secretaries, even the married ones. Her mother hated it, but not enough to say a word. Ellis swore she'd never become someone's doormat. Maggie tells Ellis she would have never taken her as a doormat type, and Ellis answers her she wasn't, and she asks Maggie who she is, and she tells Maggie that this letter is for her daughter. It's nice getting some of Ellis's history or backstory that we haven't heard before. It reminds me of the episode in season 3 where, as the doctors are trying to revive Meredith after she almost drowned in the water, and she dreamt of the woman who was impaled by a railing with another man, and the guy survived and made it, but her internal injuries were too great and she bled out. That episode was Into You Like a Train, as I recall. Also, her mother's scrub nurse was in that dream with Meredith when she was being revived, the scrub nurse who passed, and Meredith was in this odd limbo place, and Denny was there, and the guy who disarmed the live round that the EMT Hannah had her hand clamped on, and then she ran away out of fear, and Meredith stepped in and put her hand on the live munitions so that it wouldn't move too much or possibly explode. And the bomb squad moved the patient to be not over the gas line, and they got the round out, but it exploded in the bomb squad guy's hands as he walked down the hall, and he passed away. He was there in her dream as well. And in the end of that dream, Meredith sees her mom, who had just passed, and she knows already when Derek and Richard tell her that her mom didn't make it because she saw her in the dream. And in the dream, her mom tells her to go back, and she eventually comes to life. I believe when Christina walks in the room and starts talking to Meredith, if I'm correct, but I might be mistaken on if that's exactly when Meredith woke up. That reminds me of this. Maggie tells Ellis that she's Maggie, Margaret, her daughter. I am one of your daughters, Ellis, and Ellis just sighs. And she goes, annoyed. And she says, where was I? Ellis continues reading the letter. She seems very intent on reading the letter and very basically ignoring Maggie and dismissive of her. She continues reading the letter. She swore she'd never follow her mother's example. That was short-lived. She ended up as Richard Weber's doormat. She loved him, even that part of him that was married, because that meant she could never end up like her mother. Maggie steps closer to Ellis, her mom, and Ellis sternly tells Maggie not to hover over her, that she's distracting her. Maggie says sorry, and she asks Ellis to please stay, not to go anywhere, to keep reading. As Maggie is either dreaming or hallucinating from fever or having some type of break, which I doubt, Dr. Ndugu is watching Meredith's kids. The kids are running around, and Dr. Ndugu wants them to settle down quietly so Maggie can sleep. He tries getting the kids to play Connect 4, but they don't seem interested, and he seems like he's starting to get a little frazzled. Zola asks Dr. Ndugu if he was scared when his mom died, and he says he was scared. He was a lot of things. Zola says she was scared when she thought Meredith was dying, and Dr. Ndugu says he was scared too. But thankfully, Meredith is here now, and she's okay. Zola says, yeah, but she's still scared. Dr. Ndugu says he understands that, and he thinks all they can do is try to take advantage of the time they have now with the people they love. Derek and Ellis are running around, and Derek gets hurt. He scrapes his knee, and there's a little bit of blood. Back at the cabin, Nick and his niece, Charlotte, are fighting over her decision to quit school. She says she intended on telling Nick, and Nick asks when, and she says soon. She tells Nick she knew he was going to do this and be him and freak out. Nick asks, how is he supposed to react to the news that she is dropping out of college? Charlotte says she's taking time off, and Nick tells her she has 2 years left. Charlotte insists she wants to travel now. Nick tells her she needs to finish college first and then travel the world. That's how it works. Silver interjects that the world really is the best classroom. Meredith tells Nick that Silver isn't entirely wrong. He asks Meredith if she's serious. Charlotte says she and Silver want to elevate themselves, and Costa Rica is all about wellness. Silver assures Nick he's planning some sweet meditation workshops. Nick tells Silver he's got to stop talking, and it looks like he's about to lose his shit. Charlotte says they're staying in Eco Lodge, and they're going to be surrounded by nature. Nick asks his niece if she's hearing herself. He asks if he's the only one that thinks this is completely ridiculous. He looks to Meredith, and he says, "Please help me out here." Meredith stays silent, and he says, "Wow, thank you." Charlotte tells Nick it's not his decision to make. Nick asks Charlotte how she'll pay for it, and she has money saved, and they'll make money with Silver's meditation workshops. Silver tells Nick they are pay what you can, and Nick says that sounds about right. Nick asks Charlotte, so what happens when you change your mind about the Eco Lodge and your soulmate, and Silver turns out to be bronze? He tells his niece she will be stuck in Costa Rica with no money, and who will she call then? And Charlotte says, "Not you," and she walks off. Nick says he's the only one she can call. Silver is still chomping on his steak, completely unbothered, and he says he thinks the steak is Wagyu. Kai and Amelia are at the bar talking about the afterlife. Amelia is surprised as a neuroscientist that Kai believes in an afterlife. Kai doesn't believe life on Earth is all there is. Kai looks at this life as one long journey. Amelia thinks living life after life sounds completely exhausting. She doesn't seem too down for that. Kai thinks that we improve with each life, so the next life will be decent. Kai tells Amelia to temper her expectations. The band is okay. The vibe is good. And Amelia says she would listen to bad karaoke right now. Kai goes on stage and performs, and Amelia is totally loving it. They hook up next. Nick is pissed. He's outside. He's chopping wood, brooding. And it kind of, again, reminds me of Derek after he found out his mortality rate from surgeries. Remember, he took a break from being a doctor, and around the time when he hit Meredith's wedding engagement ring into the woods. And he's brooding, and Meredith finds him outside chopping wood, and she explains that she used to be Charlotte. She had the pink hair. I had pink hair. I loved having pink hair. And she traveled all over Europe when she was about Charlotte's age, and she had soulmates that were fun. Nick asks if that is supposed to make him feel better, and Meredith answers, maybe. She's just saying that things worked out okay for her. Nick asks Meredith when he thought he was dying, what did he ask of Meredith to do for Charlotte? And Meredith answers, to make sure Charlotte got an education. Nick says that's right, and Meredith should know this is not up for discussion. Meredith asks, because of your sister? Nick says he's not going to talk about his sister right now. But I'm not 100% sure, but I believe she passed, and she made bad life choices, and Nick raised Charlotte from a young age when Nick's sister passed. Meredith warns Nick that if he keeps trying to control Charlotte, he will lose her. He has to find a way to let his niece be who she is. That's the one thing Meredith does know about being a 20-year-old woman. She tells Nick she gets that it's hard, and Nick says she doesn't get it. He tells Meredith she had a mother who was a surgical genius. His niece had a woman who couldn't even recognize her 9 times out of 10. He says Charlotte is genetically programmed to make huge mistakes, and Nick spent the last 10 years raising her to make sure that does not happen. So Meredith doesn't get it. Meredith goes back inside after that. Derek tells Dr. Ndugu that Ellis pushed him into the fireplace, and Ellis says Derek pushed her. And now they're fighting over a stuffed animal, tugging at it to see who gets it, fighting over it. Dr. Ndugu tells the kids they don't want Maggie to wake up or she'll see the blood on the carpet from Derek's scraped knee. Zola tells Derek she told him not to run in the house, and he tells Zola that she always runs in the house. Dr. Ndugu is cleaning up Derek's knee. He makes it a game, playing emergency room, and that was really smart of him to keep the kids calm and involved and make it into a game. Zola will help Dr. Ndugu as the resident to assist him, and Derek is the patient. He asks Zola to prepare the antiseptic. Zola explains that they will clean the cut first and protect it with gauze to promote healing, just like back in the day when the interns used to run down surgeries with the residents and attendings. Maggie is now curled up in bed, and Ellis is in a rocking chair beside the bed, humming and rocking away with the letter, and Ellis sings Hush Little Baby, and Maggie approaches her and she asks Ellis if she ever thought about her. She asks Ellis if she ever tried to contact her, or did she ever want to contact Maggie. Ellis continues rocking and singing, and Maggie tells her to please stop singing. Ellis reads on. She says she constantly used to be so unsure of herself. She constantly listened to everyone else, advisors, attendings, even other residents, but she never listened to the voice inside, to what she wanted. Maggie asks if that is why Ellis gave Maggie up for adoption. Ellis ignores Maggie's question and she continues reading the letter. She says she didn't want to go into general surgery initially. She wanted to specialize in cardio, but she talked herself out of it. She forced herself out of it. Maggie asks, you wanted to go into cardio? Ellis says she would have been extraordinary. Maggie says that she is extraordinary. She went into cardio, and she asks Ellis if it's because of her. Ellis answers, how should I know? Maggie says, because I'm your daughter, and Ellis is staring at the letter, consumed with reading the letter, and Maggie gets in her face and tells her, please look at me. Please, please, look at me. See me, please. And she's begging Ellis to acknowledge her. But Ellis just continues reading. She reads, regrets are useless, though. They make you weak, always pining for something out of your control. She says that's why she became a remarkable surgeon, because she never let the inconsequential get in her way. Maggie gets irritated. She asks, I was inconsequential? And Ellis shouts at her, Margaret, would you stop interrupting? She goes back to humming the lullaby and reading. Dr. Ndugu checks on Maggie and he finds her asleep with the letter in her hands. Amelia asks if Kai ever feels the kid marriage pressure, and she gets it from her grandmother, Kai says. Grandmother reminds her that she's not getting any younger. Kai has a bunch of plants that she named. Kai says she loves kids so much that she doesn't want any. She says being a parent is hard. You're responsible for another person's everything, shaping their perspective, shaping their worldview. And they're also having, as a parent, you're having to try to keep your child alive and also mold them into becoming a decent human being, all while also figuring out your own stuff. Amelia says there's a lot of love that comes into balance all of that. And Kai says she loves. Meredith is cleaning the kitchen and Charlotte walks in looking for Silver, who went outside, and he told Meredith something about needing a pipe. I'm sure he was going to go blaze. I'm an advocate of blazing, so I'm not going to comment there. Charlotte asks Meredith if she could talk to Nick since she has sway with him. Meredith tells Charlotte she reminds her a lot of herself, but she's braver than Meredith was. Meredith tells Charlotte she thought she was rebelling against her mother, but she was actually doing exactly what her mom wanted her to do. Charlotte insists she's not rebelling. Meredith asks Charlotte if she's sure, and Charlotte is sure. She wants something new and different, a change. And the last 2 years of college were not what she expected, and she's been thinking about the way she wants to live her life, and maybe it's not like other people, or how her Uncle Nick wants her to live. Meredith tells Charlotte that he means well. Charlotte tells Meredith Nick is so worried about her becoming her mother that he doesn't see who she actually is becoming. Meredith tells her it's hard to live outside of the shadow of your parents. Charlotte says Nick is making it harder. It's always been his way or no way. And she says Meredith will see that eventually. She asks if Meredith will talk to her uncle, and Meredith tells her that she can do it herself as Nick walks in the room. Ellis continues reading the letter, saying she stopped doing what was expected of her after Richard. After Richard, she started doing what was best for her and only her. Maggie tells Ellis she's not judging her for giving her up, but she feels as though Ellis is ashamed of her, the child of an affair with a married man who didn't choose her. Maggie asks Ellis, tell me I'm wrong. Next, they are both in bed, and Ellis has her arm around Maggie. Reading on, she says that the first time she met Bill and Diane, Maggie's adoptive parents, she was so nervous that they would judge her, but it was nothing like that. They were kind and loving, hardworking people who really wanted a child. Maggie asks Ellis, you chose my parents? Ellis tells Maggie she knew Maggie would be in good hands. They were Ellis's first choice. She just knew. They asked if Ellis wanted an occasional update about how Maggie was doing, but Ellis declined to get those updates. Maggie tells Ellis she's not a dinner invitation to decline. She tells Ellis, you declined? You weren't the least bit curious about me? She tells Ellis she's the one who thinks everything she touches is extraordinary. She didn't want to see if Maggie fit the bill. Ellis turns around to sit facing the opposite direction of Maggie, and Maggie tells her to look at her, that Ellis doesn't get to avoid her now. She yells, "Look at me!" Ellis loses her temper. She yells, "What do you want me to say? That I wish it was different? That I wish that you and Meredith and she and Richard could have been one big, happy family?" That was a childish fantasy. It was never going to happen. Maggie says she is here every day in the shadow of the great Ellis Gray, a living and breathing and walking and talking mistake, the one that wasn't good enough to be approved. Ellis says Maggie doesn't know how hard it was for her, but she picked up the pieces and moved on. She did it on her own. Maggie says she spent every day wondering why she wasn't worthy. Maggie asks Ellis, did she ever think about how she might feel? Ellis said she made a decision and she stood by it, and that decision not to see Maggie, she doesn't regret one bit. That decision she is proud of. Maggie wakes up screaming, and in comes her husband, Dr. Ndugu, to ask what happened and if Maggie is okay. Maggie says no, she isn't okay, that Ellis is awful. Maggie says she's exactly as Meredith described her. Maggie doesn't think she will finish the letter. Dr. Ndugu tells her, don't finish it, and no, whatever it says does not change the amazing person that she is. Maggie says she knows, but she wishes she didn't need Ellis, her biological mom, to know what an amazing person she is too. Nick is talking to his niece. He tells her that finishing school will give her more options. It's something most people don't have. And Charlotte asks if by most people he is talking about her mom. And Nick says yes, her mom could have had options, but she threw them all away. She made the same mistakes over and over and over again. Charlotte says she knows, she was there, and Nick tells her to act like it. Nick says he just wants what's best for her, and Charlotte tells him, based on what you want, not what she wants, and Nick says it's based on a lot of life experience. Charlotte tells Nick most people aren't like him. Not everyone wakes up one day and immediately knows what they want to do, and she needs to figure stuff out by herself. And she asks why that can't be okay. Nick tells Charlotte he doesn't want her to have to struggle. She tells Nick to give himself more credit. She asks Nick, has he ever had to bail her out of jail or pick her up off the side of the road or take pills out of her hand? And Nick answers no, and Charlotte explains, it's because he did his job. She's okay, and it's because of him that she can even think about traveling the world. She will go back to school, she promises. She'll make sure she has options, but he has to stop trying to dictate her every move. He has to let her mess up and change her mind a few times. She says she will only do plant-based drugs. Maggie falls asleep and back into the dream with Ellis reading her the letter she wrote her. Ellis says she has one regret. She wishes Maggie and Meredith could have met because Meredith could have used a sister. Ellis says Meredith is so much like her, stubborn and singular focused. She says she has a feeling that Maggie would have been a good influence on her and they would have been like true sisters. And Maggie tells Ellis they are. Ellis tells Maggie she wasn't the best mother to Meredith. She had high expectations that Meredith couldn't always reach. But she did her best with Maggie by giving her away. She knew Maggie would be better off with Bill and Diane, and Maggie tells Ellis she was better off with Bill and Diane. Maggie feels a hand caressing her forehead, and it's her adopted mom who passed away who's greeting her. Amelia and Kai are chilling, and she asks when Kai got into music, and Kai says, a few years ago. And Amelia is surprised because she looks like she's been playing since she was a kid. Kai says that it started as a dare. Her friends took her to open mic night to cure her hatred of public speaking, but it didn't work. Kai says performing is it's a deep part of her that doesn't get to come out often that gets to be a rock star. She's carefree on stage and self-assured. Amelia says just when she feels like she's figuring her stuff out, life lifes. And Kai asks Amelia why she pretends she isn't a rock star herself. Kai asks why Amelia self-deprecates, and Amelia says it's her shield of armor from fully loving every part of herself, because if she does, she deserves a love who does the same. Kai says it took her a while to embrace who she is, so outside love is just like the icing. Amelia tells Kai she doesn't think she knows all of who she is. Silver asks Nick and Meredith if they are sure they don't want to come because it will be a sick full moon ceremony. Nick asks Meredith, sick full moon? She's good, so Nick says, we'll pass. Nick's niece tells Meredith she's glad her uncle has someone else to worry about, and Meredith tells her to have a great time in Costa Rica. Nick apologizes for the ruined weekend, and Meredith says these are their lives, so there's no need to apologize for them. Nick tells Meredith he isn't used to help or somebody else's opinion, and Meredith tells him if he knows anything about her, he'll have to get used to it. Nick says it's not easy for him. He asks Meredith how she would feel if he were to give her help when it comes to her sisters. Meredith says she wouldn't like it and she'd tell him he's wrong. So Nick says they both will have to get used to somebody else's opinion. Meredith tells Nick Charlotte's a great girl and he did a good job. Nick says he doesn't want her to end up like him either, so rigid, and one day she might wake up and want to rethink everything the way he is. Meredith asks Nick if that's what he's doing, and he says he chose a career where saving one life means losing another, and every case feels harder than the last. Meredith asks if he's thinking about quitting, and he says no, and then he says he doesn't know. Meredith tells Nick that Dr. Hamilton thinks she took the project because she is really trying to cure Alzheimer's. And Nick asks if it's true, and Meredith says she doesn't know. She also doesn't know if she can go back to Grace Sloan to be chief of general surgery anymore. Nick and Meredith go for a walk, and he tells her earlier today she saw that he's not the most patient. Meredith asks who's patient when it comes to their family because she isn't either. She tells him she also has a temper, and Nick says he doesn't believe it. Nick tells Meredith he once threw a tractor after losing a patient. Meredith tells Nick she has a hard time trusting people. Nick tells Meredith that when he's falling in love, it scares him because he's done it very rarely in his life. He doesn't love the feeling of losing control. Maggie is upset over the letter. Zola asks Dr. Ndugu if her birth mother thinks of her. Dr. Ndugu asks Zola if she thinks about her birth mother, and Zola says she wonders about her, but she feels bad about it. She doesn't want to make her mom sad. Dr. Ndugu tells Zola he thinks it's normal to wonder where she came from and why we are the way we are, and you can have different feelings about it. It's normal. Growing up, he didn't like being around his dad because of the decisions his dad made, but his mom is his hero, and Zola says, so is mine. The next morning, Kai wakes up, and Amelia is up in chains. She tells her that she could stay, and Amelia says she can't stay because she's a mom, and when she's in Minnesota, she misses her son with every cell of her body, and she hopes that that part of her doesn't scare Kai away because that is a part of her that she truly, deeply loves. Meredith flies back home, and she looks at the letter Maggie showed her and tells Maggie she can't believe Ellis wrote this. It doesn't seem like her. Maggie says it's not like she mailed it, and Meredith says her mom could have forgot she wrote it because we know that she had Alzheimer's. Amelia asks Maggie if she's glad she read it, and Maggie doesn't know, but she always felt like something was always missing, and Maggie thought it was Ellis, but it's not, and then she burns the letter from Ellis. Meredith's voiceover says, who you really are is the result of many, many things. How you deal with fear, who you surround yourself with, how you show up when it matters. That does it for this episode. Thanks for listening. See you guys next week for the next episode of Grace. I'll also be uploading one true crime episode regarding Lakai from My Sister Wives fans out there. There was a planned Christmas Day murder-suicide, a $4.7 million lawsuit, and an affair, all tied to the world-famous Lakai featured on Sister Wives during Cody and Mary's 20th wedding anniversary, and also Lakai was the venue for Aspen and Mitch's wedding. I'll put that out very soon. I'll also proceed with Season 1, Episode 6 next weekend. And of course, before the 90 days, I will put out on Sunday as well on my channel, 90 Day with MaryJane Kay. Thanks, guys, for listening. I hope to hear your thoughts in the comments. Bye.